Hey, friends, I know from personal experience that investing in a downturn is scary.
But it can really pay off. For example, imagine sharing your brand's message with a core group of younger wine enthusiasts.
Hey, I want that.
You've got that, Catherine. We are your portal to the next generation.
That's right. Email our sales director, Zoe at thefortop.org, or reach out to us on social media to learn more. Good morning, haters.
Well, that's some interesting 2025 energy. Do you have haters?
If you don't have haters, you aren't living right.
Um, okay. Are you calling out any specific haters or just haters overall?
Well, remember my New Year's resolution?
Ah, yes. You want to grow 1 more inch to be 6'5" or something?
Yeah, well, a lot of haters said it was impossible since I'm 30 and I stopped growing a decade ago, but guess what? I went in for my yearly physical this morning and I grew a half an inch. Last time I was measured at and now I'm and a half.
Okay, but as I recall, Nick, I think you were aiming to become 6'3" this year. So what happened to that?
Oh shit. Okay, I'm going to go back and bleep that out in post. But the moral of the story is I am growing, which I think says a lot about alcohol and health. Do you think it's a coincidence that I drink in moderation and I grew half an inch? I'm seeing causation here.
That is some bad science, Nick.
Okay, well, which one of us has a science degree, Ruby?
Isn't yours a political science degree?
All right. Well, I didn't think I'd be adding two more names to my list of haters this morning, but here we go. Ruby Welkovich. Catherine Cole. This is a sad day.
Oh, come on, Nick. I'm proud of your growth. Good job. The Surgeon General sends shockwaves through the beverage world. A rock star Napa winemaker goes NA. We speak with the sober somm, and food tourism is dead, according to the New York Times. These are the top wine news stories we're covering this week on the Foretop. I'm Catherine Cole, here with Nick Toole, who is half an inch taller, and Ruby Welkovich.
All right, let's just get it out of the way, guys.
Oh, are you talking about the story?
Oh, not the story.
Yes, the story. The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, announced last Friday that he is recommending warning labels on alcoholic beverages, just like cigarettes. His decision is based on the fact that alcohol consumption is linked to at least 7 types of cancer. But Congress would actually have to do something for that to happen. So, don't hold your breath. And can I just say, it feels like health professionals love to drop this info during or right after the holidays. Just way to make us feel all crappy about our champagne popping, guys.
Oh, I know. Remember the WHO did the same thing with their declaration about alcohol and health? That was back in January 2023. As you all might remember, we devoted a great deal of last year debunking some of the WHO's declarations right here on the Foretop.
Well, according to Dr. Murthy, that glass of wine with dinner could open the door to 7 different types of cancer. That's right, he's saying that just 1 glass a day is enough to bump your cancer risk. Overall, alcohol is the third leading preventable cause of cancer, right behind tobacco and obesity. I actually was looking at a Food 52 post on Instagram today talking about how their predicted cocktail of 2025 is the paper plane. And there were some people underneath it commenting about this, this thing. Hold on, I'll read one of the comments. This is from Kim Kasabin. Given the Surgeon General's recent recommendation that alcohol bottles carry a cancer warning label, I thought you might have chosen a mocktail, but ad revenues.
Well, people still drink.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, Ruby. But I want to circle back to exactly what Dr. Murthy said, because he said alcohol was the third leading contributor to cancer. But that doesn't mean it's the third preventable cause of death. Those are very much two different things. And when you start to look at those numbers, as Dr. Laura Catena so eloquently points out, we've had her on the podcast, the narrative becomes a little less straightforward because the leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease, and moderate alcohol consumption, and wine consumption in particular, has been linked to reduced rates of heart disease. Now, if you're in the wine industry and you follow this podcast, as I mentioned, you know this, but it's worth repeating this fact. We're not talking about the third leading cause of death. We're talking about the third leading contributor to certain types of cancer.
Well, at any rate, for any new warning labels to actually be required on bottles, Congress has to get involved. So we're just going to hang out and see if they decide our booze is dangerous enough for action. And given that the most recent election shifted power between parties, it may be that Congress decides not to act on Murthy's recommendation out of partisan spite, which, in this case, I might approve of. I don't know.
I don't know. I actually think that nutrition labels on alcohol could actually really help wine because it really is a natural product. Personal aside here, I've been taking just a dry week to kick off January, and I bought some of those NA CBD waters over the weekend, and they did not agree with me. I had 1.5 cans of this, like, seemingly innocuous CBD water, and I woke up Sunday morning with a huge CBD hangover, and that got me thinking, like, what is even in this beverage? The ingredient list on the cans, they're all, like, really long, lots of fine print. Whereas with wine, I know exactly what I'm getting, where the fruit was farmed, and so I think more transparency on wine labels could actually help out the wine industry.
It's interesting that you say that, as our friends at Business of Drinks reported recently that sugary alcoholic drinks are on the rise. So we're drinking less low sugar wine because of health, but drinking more Bailey's s'mores, for example. And as more and more people are reducing or eliminating their alcohol intake, sales of soft drinks are going up, sugary and diet versions alike. So I don't know what gives.
Well, whether Congress decides to slap on warning labels or not, Dr. Murthy's statement will still hit the wine industry hard. The Surgeon General did try to soften his message by saying the risk is lower for occasional drinkers, but if you're having a drink a day, well, this report may make you stop and think a little more.
I have thought about it, and my dry week ends tonight, but I will continue to drink in moderation.
Didn't Oscar Wilde say everything in moderation, including moderation? New year, new me, same wine trends. For our second news story, we're diving into a topic that's shaking up the wine world: the rise of non alcoholic wines. Aaron Pott, a name many of you probably recognize, is behind a new venture called Missing Thorn. But can you guess the catch?
Is it that it's alcohol free? You literally just mentioned that the story is about non alcoholic wines.
Oh, oh, right. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. It it's wine without the alcohol. By the way, thanks to Chelsea Davis and Forbes for bringing us this story.
Yeah, this piece got my attention because Aaron Pott is one of the hotshot winemakers in Napa Valley, kind of in the same echelon as Thomas Rivers Brown, whom I believe he trained under, and names like Nigel Kinsman, Philippe Melka, Graham McDonald. There's kind of a gang of these guys who are very highly regarded in Napa Valley.
I'm getting celebrity wine bro vibes.
Yeah. There kind of is a fraternity going on there, but they all seem like pretty laid back dudes who really just love farming and making wine. But I have to admit, they all look pretty hunky in those regular wine spectator features on them.
Okay, we all look hunky with some nice editing, all right? But I can see why you found this interesting, Catherine. One of these 100-point Napa Cab winemakers is jumping on the NA train. So that's pretty big.
Hmm.
This project, Missing Thorn, is a collaboration with Stephanie Honig, whose name listeners may know from Honig Vineyard and Winery. And they've set out to create a premium product, something that retains the integrity of traditional wine, but no booze.
I'm a little skeptical that this is going to be any good, given what I've tasted in the de alcoholized wine area. But apparently, Pot and Honig select the best de alcoholized wines out of hundreds of lots. According to Pot, quote, not all wines de alc well, and that's the secret.
Yeah, wines which have the alcohol removed are often panned for their lack of depth and character, but Pott and Honig claim they've cracked the code. Now, whether Missing Thorn truly matches the complexity of traditional wines with full alcohol due to fermentation is up for debate.
Missing Thorn launched in October, so just a few months ago, but has already been picked up by prominent restaurants like Napa Valley's Farmstead and New York's Gramercy Tavern. So, my question is it meeting the growing demand for non alcoholic options, or is it just, well marketed novelty?
The non alcoholic wine market grew from $50 million dollars in 2022 to $340 million dollars in 2023. Gen Z and millennials are leading this quote unquote sober, curious movement, with more people cutting back on alcohol each year. But let's not forget the price point and accessibility. Aaron Potts wines tend to sell for upwards of $90 a bottle. Is Missing Thorn something the average consumer can afford, or is it catering to a niche crowd?
That's a good question. I mean, when I think of the wines I've seen that Aaron Pot makes, I think of them as being more in like the $200 a bottle range. But I'm looking on Missing Thorn's website right now, and these wines actually range from approximately 20 to 30 bucks. So pretty reasonable, as long as you don't think to yourself, this is grape juice. I'm buying grape juice and I'm spending $30 on it. But now I'm really curious, guys, to see if any of these other kind of prominent celebrity winemakers come out with their own NA products. I feel like Aaron Pot has kind of broken the seal off that. So all eyes on you, Thomas Rivers Brown.
That's quite a name, by the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it out loud again.
All right, so we've talked about the new recommendation from the US Surgeon General, and we've talked about a winemaking star's new NA venture. So it seems like we've got a theme here. Do we want to keep it going?
Ruby, is this just you wanting to talk about your favorite mocktails again?
Well, maybe, but we won't do that right now. Right now, I want to phone a friend, wine influencer, and wine enthusiast 40 under 40 tastemaker, Abe Zarate, aka Sober Som. Abe does a lot of education and advocacy around cutting back on alcohol, and I thought he could help us understand wine's place in a changing world.
That sounds like a great idea. How did you find this sober psalm?
Well, Karen McNeil of Come Over October spoke with him on Instagram Live back in October, and I thought he was great. So, should we give him a call?
Oh, yeah, I randomly, for no reason, have his number right here. Beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, boop.
Abe Zarate, welcome to the Foretop. Let us know a little bit about you. You're the beverage director at Contento in New York, is that correct?
Yes, thank you. Contento just closed its doors a week ago. That's maybe a story for a different
Oh,
time.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, so right now, kind of figuring that out, but a great, great place, great people, and a great mission behind it. And I was very fortunate to do the beverage program there that was started by Yannick Benjamin, and he created this very unique list in the sense that it managed to highlight, you know, the that word inclusivity that we throw out a lot, but in a very holistic way.
Very cool. Yannick Benjamin is such an industry leader. I'm sorry it's closed. But we're very curious about your alter ego, the sober som. So
Yeah,
you're a sober sommelier. And so we're curious, what does a day look like for you? And how is it different from, a day for your colleagues?
at work, it's the exact same, in terms of actually tasting and whatnot. I'll go to big portfolio tastings or reps will come in and I just need a spit cup next to me, much like, my peers who do consume or ingest alcohol and, still spit, or I like to think they spit most of the time. But but in everything else, it's just behind the scenes work, and it's a very personal choice that I made almost 4.5 years ago, and just because I view it kind of as an allergy of sorts, whereas I just needed to interact with it in a different way and reframe everything around it, just because I know alcohol is not going to go anywhere, and for good reason. I didn't want to be scared of a substance or try to exhaust myself avoiding a substance just because I know it doesn't agree with me in very specific ways.
That
yeah.
allergy framing is really interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but that makes a lot of sense.
I thought about it when I worked with a chef who had a shellfish allergy and we still had a shellfish item on the menu. And it just made sense to me. It just, of course, why wouldn't you, have someone else handle the shellfish and you're behind the creative, or you just let someone else shine in the creative, or, it's not like you're all of a sudden not allowed to go to Italy as a chef if you have a gluten allergy.
Yeah.
It does make sense, yeah. So, what what keeps you in the wine industry? What about the wine industry continues to interest you if you aren't, I mean, you're tasting, but if you aren't consuming?
It's community. It's culture. It's I have a trip booked to Burgundy next week, and I'm excited about those things. The people that I'm gonna meet. it's becoming less and less about what I'm actually ingesting than everything else around it. And I truly stand by that.
Very
Makes a
cool.
lot of sense.
I saw recently that you posted that AA doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was so interesting because I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that to be a part of AA or for it to work, you need to have a belief in God or a higher power. And so I was wondering if you think that maybe, younger generations believe less in that stuff and that's why AA isn't for everyone. Like what is your theory behind that?
It just didn't work for me because it was same thing. It was too faith based, and I'm not religious in that sense. I also didn't feel like I agreed with their statement of considering yourself an alcoholic for the rest of your life and recovery for the rest of your life. I didn't want to be scared. I wanted to just coexist with everything around me and then figure out tools and lean on my support systems. And those aren't just people; they're books, podcasts, etc. And to do just that. And so if I were to give myself a label, it'd be ex-alcoholic because I'm no longer doing it. I played tennis in high school. I'm not a tennis player anymore. I'm an ex-tennis player.
What do you see as the future of wine in this more health conscious future world that we're living in?
We're missing the point. Even when I was ingesting alcohol, I wasn't going to alcohol because I thought, I'm craving a healthy drink today. Let me get a glass of wine.
Yeah.
No, it's just fun. It's communal. It's a way to just hang out with people. It's a means to an end. It's not the start of the show.
I feel we're kind of missing the point, and the conversation should be about community, about where it comes from, and who it impacts, and all that, and as opposed to, is this particular thing in my hand good or bad for my biology?
Yeah, I mean, another example, I love chips. I know chips technically have poison in them, but I'm not resorting to chips because I think they might be healthy or I see an article pop up that they're not as bad as we make them out to be. Or, it's just I want chips and I'm craving them and I'm consuming one bag every so often. It's not affecting my life in any negative way so far. At some point it does, then I readjust. And then that's where I think someone in my position comes in, which is you are able to rethink a relationship, a dynamic, whether it's with a person or a substance, which are not that different, to figure out a truly sustainable way to coexist. Because again, if I develop some sort of intolerance to chips, they're not going to go away. And what am I going to do? Not go to my friend's party just because there are going to be chips on the table? It's just so silly to me.
You know, we're all kind of whining about or decrying this statement, first from the WHO and now from the Surgeon General. But what if we kind of flip it around and say, hey, this is good because we all kind of needed a wake up call. Like a lot of us in the wine industry needed to ratchet it back. I mean, I certainly know people in the industry who are just drinking all day and it is not good for their health. So what would you say, Abe, to someone who's like, you know what? I am heeding the Surgeon General's warning. I don't think I have a problem, but I do need to cut back. But what are some tips, some things I can do so I don't feel like I've got this void in my life where wine used to be? So what's some advice you could offer, Abe?
Oh, that's a deeper question. I, well, because it's hard, because it's firstly removing anything that's in the way of you getting to that root of where the void may be coming from. A lot of it's just knowing that it's gonna suck a lot of the time. The void is gonna stay there. We're all
Hmm.
collectively grieving something and or someone at all times, and we know how grief works. It just shows up unexpectedly. So it's having the clarity to understand that when these difficult moments come, I'm going to be okay and I'm not going to resort to whatever it is that's going to numb them away. I was drinking for every occasion. When I was
Yeah.
sad, when I was happy, when I was angry, when I was frustrated. when I was just okay watching TV to kind of convince myself that I would feel something when I was actually the opposite.
Mhm, mhm. I love that. Well, thank you for putting yourself out there. I think you mentioned earlier that you kind of were surprised by the reactions you've gotten on Instagram. But I know it's difficult to put yourself out there, and I really appreciate your sharing your story and your journey.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking, and thank you for inviting me. It's yeah, I get amped up. I'm just realizing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Abe, where can our listeners find you on socials?
At sober_som, SOMM. And I would also point people to at Corporate Pero Latinos. Again, something for another time, but it's my sister's nonprofit, and we focus on building community under the Latinx umbrella. But our big initiative is English as a second language, free classes for hospitality workers. So take a look at
Oh,
that
that's
too.
great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I
oh,
love
cool.
that.
Very nice. That's
Well,
awesome.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Enjoy Burgundy.
Thank you.
All right. I think we better switch gears a little for this last story. I'm a little tired of the non-alcohol thread, so let's start a new one.
Catherine, we had such a good thing going.
Okay. Let me reframe it. We're going to continue talking about new trends, but now let's talk about food, not just alcohol.
Okay, that's fine by me.
All right. So the New York Times ran an interesting opinion piece recently by Brian Lee. He's the CEO of Righteous Eats, which is, I believe, an organization that supports and promotes smaller independent restaurants. So Lee argues that food tourism, what we've known for years as chasing down the quote authentic food spots, this is kind of dead. It's the end of the food tourism era.
Right? And it kind of makes sense. The whole idea of like going to a specific place for a taste of something real is kind of losing its luster because these days you don't have to fly halfway around the world to get an authentic dish. You can often find it in your own city. Now, I will say I'm in Portland, Maine. It gets a little harder up here, but you can even have it delivered to your door via like Uber Eats or Goldbelly. And social media and food delivery apps are kind of ruining the surprise of that experience.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Goldbelly, it's a website slash app where you can order food from very famous restaurants, I believe across the country, and get them delivered to your door. So you can get baked goods, or I actually saw that Gray's Papaya, the hot dog place in New York City, delivers their food through Goldbelly. So if
Oh,
you're
no way.
craving a hot dog,
That is so funny.
you can do that.
That
Anyway,
that bun's gotta be ruined by the time it gets to you, right?
I imagine they send it in like separate compartments. I'm actually curious how they do it. So maybe we should do it as an experiment.
I wanna get a sloppy, gross bun in
A
my
hot dog
mouth.
just, like, wrapped in aluminum foil like they give it to you at the
Yeah.
place. Anyway, back to our story. Once you've seen the perfect food Instagram post of some hidden gem, the magic's kind of gone. But Lee makes a great point because what's replacing that? Well, he says it's something more exciting.
Lee calls it the rise of third culture cuisines. And these are dishes that aren't just authentic, but are evolving through like immigration, diaspora, and global connectivity. It's food that's mixing different cultural histories in real time. And according to Lee, it's way more interesting than following the old tourist trails.
Yeah, I love this example Lee cited. It's about a Hunanese restaurant called Chila. It's in Madrid, Spain. And it's an example of Spanish and Chinese influences coming together that is both a comfort for Chinese expats and a new experience for locals. If you don't mind, I have to quote this. I just love this. He writes, the storefront could have been plucked straight from Hunan's spice loving heartland. It serves as both a cultural lifeline for Chinese expatriates in Spain and as an introduction to regional Chinese cooking for curious madrileños. Diners there can wash down their meals with sangria or baijiu from Guzhou, and it's a perfect blend of Spanish and Chinese drinking traditions. I love that. That sounds so great.
Yeah, it does.
And this is happening all over the world. Lee mentions how Germany's food scene has transformed, especially with the Turkish community that's been there for decades. You can see Turkish food being reimagined and adapted in Germany.
Oh yeah, I was on that shawarma hunt when I was in Berlin. After like a long night of clubbing, woo! I think we left the club at 8 a.m. and
Oh,
then we were
wow.
getting shawarma down the street at like 8:30, and then we slept until 3. Kidney pudding. So Lee also points to Peru, where you've got Chinese and Japanese immigration, and it has really reshaped the cuisine for over 100 years. You're not just tasting Chinese food in Peru; you're tasting like a whole new culinary identity that blends both those cultures.
Oh, I love Peruvian food. I think that's globalism at its best. There is no ceviche like Peruvian ceviche. But a little side note, guys, we used to call this fusion cuisine back in the 1980s. So I want to say that we're in the fusion second wave. You can quote me on that.
I actually, around the corner from Grace Papaya is another restaurant called La Dinastia, which I've been to several times, and it's a Chinese Cuban restaurant that's been there
Mm.
for, I think, since like the 70s. So
Hmm.
I will agree with you on that. But
Oh.
anyway, this could just be ruined by social media, just like everything else. But Lee argues that this new food identity can't really be experienced through TikTok or delivery apps. To really understand it, you have to walk through neighborhoods, sit at those tables, and taste how these cultures are reshaping food in real time. Or so he says.
Well, I enjoyed this read because it got me excited about all the beverage possibilities. These new fusion cuisines sound like they're a lot of fun for beverage directors and sommeliers to work with. So excited about that.
I love ending on a happy note.
Question of the week time. So, just before Christmas and Hanukkah, we asked our social media followers what's on their holiday wine wish list, and here are the results.
Yeah, so at TOOL.e. Oh, wait, that's me. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I said that I would like some actual stemmed glassware because all we have at my house were dinky stemless glasses, and my sister-in-law got them for me or sorry, Santa got them for me for Christmas. So it's the Weissful baby or
Oh, those
whatever
are
it
good.
is.
Nice.
Those are really good. I love those. Oh, it looks like I also responded. I said the Duran corkscrew.
Oh, well, then you have something in common with MPT Wine Tastings, who also wants a Durand corkscrew.
What's up, MPT wine tastings? You got good taste.
Jim B. McClure wants a wine glass carrying case for those BYOB restaurants out there that lack stemware or at least good stemware. Don't come to my house, Jim. All I've got is stemless ware, or at least until Christmas. I think that's a great idea, Jim.
Lastly, PDX Vine and Dine wants wine books, and as a book lover, I can get behind that.
All right, guys. Well, how about a question for this coming week? I don't know. I think it's going to have to be the Surgeon General's new recommendation. How will this impact the wine industry?
Well, if you want to weigh in, look for that question on our social media pages. Cheers!
All right. Well, I am really ready for some dessert this week. Ruby, do you have some dessert for us?
I do, and I just shared the link to it in the chat. It's not so sweet, it's actually kind of sour, but I have really been enjoying Acid League's Strawberry Rosé Living Vinegar. So you can check it out. It's
What?
a beautiful bottle. It's made, I believe, from strawberry juice and white grape juice, and it's just like a really beautiful vinegar. And you can use it in salads, in baking, but what I've been doing recently is mixing it with a little bit of seltzer water or sparkling water and just like sort of drinking it as a little after dinner mocktail. I don't know what you would call that, but
Little aperitif.
yeah.
I love this stuff. It's so good, but it's kind of pricey, right?
Well, you might have remembered that I have a friend, her name's Sivan, and she gets me things for free. And she used it in a recipe a few months ago and didn't need it anymore and then gave it to me. So now I have it. A whole bottle of
Oh,
it. But I have no
that's
idea how much it costs, to be honest.
I need an Yvonne in my life.
it's
Yeah.
a good friend.
She's a really good friend.
Well, thanks for the dessert.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the Four Top Podcast. I am our executive producer, Catherine Cole.
I'm our producer, Nick Toole.
I'm media and design manager, Ruby Welkovich.
Keelan King is the composer and performer of our theme music.
Hey, y'all, you might be doing dry January, but that doesn't mean you can't listen to a wine podcast. So
That's right.
please share your favorite Four Top episode with a friend. You can just send it straight from your favorite podcast app. Easy peasy.
You can grab the episode link from your favorite podcast platform or our website at thefourtop.org.
Well, from the Fusion Cuisine Second Wave, this is Catherine signing out.
From the steps of City Hall in Portland, Maine, where I'm declaring my candidacy for Surgeon General under the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, this is Nick signing out.
Okay. And recording this live inside Gray's Papaya, this is Ruby signing out. Stay safe out there, and thanks for listening.
I'll vote for you, Nick.